A warm welcome to everyone. Greetings from Bangalore in India, and we're all very excited to have you today for this session in particular. We're lucky to have two fantastic panelists and guests with us who have been within Ashoka's network for the last few years and have played a significant role in establishing many connections and resources for our network in the region. The topic of discussion today is about Changemaker companies. We're going to delve in and have a conversation about how social entrepreneurs are collaborating with companies to drive the change that they want to see and create and co-create the visions that they want to create. We're going to find out and recognize the how-tos of how our social entrepreneurs work with these companies. And we're going to dig deep and understand why we need to work with companies to achieve the big social and economic problems that face our societies and our world today. India has been the oldest hub for Ashoka and started almost 40 years ago with the first election of an Ashoka Fellow in India back in the 1980s. Since then, we have been able to elect over 400 social entrepreneurs in the region who work across many different sectors, ranging from livelihoods to human rights to education, healthcare, and many more. Today, we are lucky to have two social entrepreneurs who work at very interesting intersections. First, it's my privilege to introduce to you all B.S. Nagesh. Nagesh was elected as an Ashoka Fellow in 2018 for his pioneering work in building systems and structures to improve the lives of retail workers in India. Prior to the work that he's been doing with his organization, Trust for Retailers and Retail Associates of India, he was what many people know him as the father of modern retail in India, where he established many retail outlets. He brought in modern technologies into the retail sector in India and has contributed significantly as the chair of the apex body of retail in the country. A warm welcome to you, Nagesh.
Thank you, Shantanu. I'm happy to be here.
Fantastic. And our second speaker today is someone who's been within our network for slightly longer time. Anita Ahuja runs Conserve India, and she has been doing so since 1997. What started off as a small project in a friend's house has now expanded into a huge network and a huge movement where she's using innovative technologies and innovative methods to upcycle and recycle plastic waste in the country. In doing so, she's able to empower and better the lives of many rag pickers who work with plastic waste all across the country and ensure that they can improve their livelihoods and hence the lives of their families as well. Anita has been recognized for her pioneering work and her innovation in upcycling and recycling plastic waste globally through many recognitions. And she was elected as an Ashoka Fellow in 2008. So it's very nice to have you with us as well, Anita.
Thank you.
Fantastic. And also joining us today, this session definitely wouldn't be possible without our two session coordinators. I would just quickly like to introduce them and ask them to say hello. So first up, we have Avantika Jain, who works with our country office in Bangalore and works to select and engage new Ashoka Fellows in the region. Warm greetings to you, Avantika.
Thank you so much, Shan. Thank you.
And of course, we have with us one of our favorites in our office in Bangalore, Natasha Diaz. Natasha has been with Ashoka for the last couple of years and has been working with social entrepreneurs to help them to be able to scale their work and collaborate with each other even further through the network. Warm greetings to you as well, Natasha.
Hi, Shan. Thank you.
Fantastic. And a warm greetings to our audience who's joining us today. I know it's different time zones in different parts of the world, but we would absolutely love if you can type in the chat box where you're calling in from, what your name is, and which organization you do represent. Hopefully throughout the session today, we'll be able to give a few shout outs to some people who do write in and mention where they are from. So thank you again for joining us. Without further ado, I'd love to get into the session and the topic of discussion today. And before we do that, I think the first area of question that I wanted to inquire about was related to the theme of our summit this year. So this year we are talking about rediscovering certainty. And as our world continues to change at a rapid pace, we all know that we need to organize differently and redefine what success looks like in this fast changing world. However, what all of our social entrepreneurs over the last 40 years have been able to demonstrate is that the journey of a social entrepreneur is about innovating and addressing complex societal problems so that they can also help others rediscover certainty. As an introduction to your work, Nagesh, I'd love to go to you first. Could you please tell us about your rediscovering certainty story and how your journey with Train started?
Well, Shantanu, first of all, thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here with you and Anita. Yeah, for me, the journey of Train actually began much before even Train was conceptualized. Okay, as a retailer who started a company with just 12 employees, and over the last 29, 30 years, 40,000 employees have come and gone, and we still have close to about 23,000 employees working. I have seen many people come into the industry and do well for themselves. But when I look at the overall industry in India, 46 million people work in retail. $150 to $200 is the income of a retail employee in the sector. And when I look at these employees, I also feel that they have not grown. They have not been able to even get minimum wages or more than minimum wages. So I always wanted to see if I can really contribute in making their life better. So as a managing director, as a chairman of a company, you can take care of the employees who are working with you, but you have limitations. You can't do many more things. In this endeavor, I thought that if I step out at an early age of 50, I'll have lots of time and lots of energy over the next 50 years of my journey. I believe I'm going to live till 100, Shantanu. So I thought that maybe I can do some good work. And that's what made me start Train. And because all my life I have been in retail, and retail is such a large industry which can absorb inclusion, absorb livelihood, I thought, no, why not work with that? And as a founding chairman of Retail Association of India, my network is with fellow retailers, and therefore the network really helped in me starting off Train. And 2011 was the year when I started off Train.
And just a quick follow-up question. I know that you just mentioned that you plan to live to 100 years, and through our conversations in the past, you've mentioned to me that you have broken down these 100 years into 4 quarters. Could you tell our audience what these 4 quarters are?
Well, I don't know when this happened, Shantanu, but yeah, I call this as 25 years of learning, 25 years of earning, 25 years of returning, and the balance 25 years to have fun more than the first 75 years. So I think I'm now in the 3rd quadrant, but honestly, I'm having fun even now. So my 3rd quadrant of returning is so enjoyable and is full of fun. I don't know what my last quadrant will be, but I'm enjoying it as of now.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Nagesh, for that wonderful introduction and for sharing your story. And I'd love to move now to Anita. Anita, in 1998, you started your own rediscovering certainty journey as you were deeply impacted by the environmental and livelihood issues that you saw in Delhi and the rag picking community that were impacted as a result of this. I'd please like to invite you to share your story with the audience.
Thank you, Shantanu. And it was very nice to hear, Nagesh. My story is, yes, I started a very long time back as a small pilot project working with plastic waste. And it grew like all social businesses do. If you handle it properly, it becomes profitable. And one is able to not only upscale the social enterprise, but also run a lot of nonprofit activities with the profits that's earned from the social enterprise. And we went through the whole startup, scale up, acquiring a social investor, exiting, the whole routine. And it's been a fascinating journey. But for me, the turning point was actually a couple of years back when I realized that circular economy is going to come very fast globally. And COVID has just shown us. So with more certainty today, I can say that the new age industry will be the recycling industry. So since we have years of experience with the recycling industry, both plastic and textile, of course, it has grown in numbers, but still there are a whole lot of associated problems with that recycling industry, both in terms of child labor, gender imbalance. I mean, name it, and it is in dire need of support and organizing. But the time of that industry has arrived. Fast fashion is definitely going, and slow fashion is going to arrive. And not only I'm talking about plastic and textile, any waste unit, whether it's in like electronics, construction, any waste, it will become very impactful and a powerful engines of India's economy. So how I see it, if Europe, I mean, internationally, if markets are going to change and slow fashion and recycled and natural fibers and all this thing becomes mainstream, then of course our traditional garment textile industry is going to be majorly affected. We are already seeing a loss of jobs and decrease of orders and other stuff. But this is going to really grow. But while there will be problems in that industry, the sunshine industry will be the recycling industry. But if we are not prepared, again, a world offers opportunities, and it's a fast moving economy and markets. If we don't catch it fast, we'll lose the truck or the van or bus, like we'll miss it again. So it is very important for the governments and for, I mean, all the stakeholders involved to focus that, with circular economy, what's going to change. And very soon these changes we'll see in offshoring, in reshoring, in automation, in so many things are going to change. So it is time we identify the new engines of growth. So with this in mind, we kind of decided to reinvent our organization to meet the challenges. So while for many years we stuck to one model of recycling a certain kind of plastic waste and making products and exporting them on high margin or profit, we decided to open source our technologies and patents and work very closely with a very large communities, which you can only do through governments and of course the private companies. So we are working with several associations now and the government. So it's a very interesting model that's emerging.
Thank you, Anita. I just mentioned to you slightly earlier, but one great thing that we love about having you in conversations such as this is you always respond with a big smile on your face, and that does help lighten the mood and helps our audience keep engaging. So this is just a reminder to the audience, if there are any questions that you might have or anything that you would like to know from our panelists today, please do write down in the chat box what they may be. And with that, I'd love to go to my next question. And that question is to you, Anita. I want to continue with you. And you just mentioned slightly that companies themselves have been big partners and will continue to be big partners in your work moving forward. So the question for you is, in India and globally, there is a recognition that complex social problems can't be solved at the helm of inspired actors in the citizen sector like yourself. There needs to be contributions and collaborations with other key institutions in society, including companies themselves. I know that you both see your companies as a critical target audience and stakeholders in your work. Could you maybe, Anita, speak a little bit about what roles companies have played in the implementation of your work and your vision and how you've collaborated with them?
Right. We are working with three industries. One is the textile industries, the plastic industry, and online gaming industry. All three industries are actually quite different from each other. But we have been able to form partnerships with all three because it's a win-win situation for them also and for us also to be associated and working closely. We have a strong business case. In terms of textile and plastic, we know that only the industry which becomes more automated, which moves smartly, will be able to survive this post-COVID scenario. So there's going to be a lot of major reorganization happening in the industry space. And we bring with us a certain experience in training, number one, because we have training at the grassroots. Like we are those last mile trainers when nobody goes, a social entrepreneur will go and train. So, which is very important learnings for all these industry, textile and plastic. And online gaming it's a young industry, so they are somehow the even the founders and the teams, to order to motivate their teams, they need to be more than just earning a lot of profits, because the players who come on these sites like to see that, okay, good, I mean, it's great to win, a game, any game which you're playing online. But if the corporate has missions or is raising money also for some missions, it just adds to the whole aura of the company. It kind of makes them leaders rather than just players of a. So everybody wants to be a leader. So many times we have had tournaments focused on issues, whether it was the migrant labor, child labor, uh, and stray animals. So the players like to donate whatever their earnings are. It can be huge amount at times. I mean, it really boggles a social entrepreneur to think about the amounts of money that's there. But they want to have a role in this sense. So I think for those companies also, a social entrepreneur and an enterprise brings something to the table which they are winning, which they won't get through regular advertisement and PR agenda. So all three industries we associate with it. We have a strong business case. We are not asking for grant or donation and it'll disappear in some black hole. We show them what's the results, how it's going to benefit them.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing that, Anita. And I'd love to then sort of go to you, Nagesh. I know that, for example, I mean, you've worked with many companies through the work that you've been doing in terms of hiring retail workers from a diversity perspective. And these are very well-known corporations such as Reliance, McDonald's, and so on and so forth. Can you speak a little bit about what your partnership has been with them and what synergies you've seen in terms of collaboration with these companies?
So Shantanu, when we started off, there were only 4-5 companies who were actually hiring persons with disabilities. And most of the things which are obvious were, for whatever reason, not obvious to them. So for example, a simple thing like saying, okay, let's celebrate a day for the retail employees, because Diwali, Christmas, Eid, when the whole world is celebrating, these guys are behind the counters in the shops trying to help us celebrate. So let's celebrate a day for them. It was so natural. It's just that somebody had to spark off this idea. And we started off with this with just 20,000 people participating in the year 2011. And last year we had 15 million people participating in 5 countries. So to me, when the idea is any social entrepreneur, if his idea is meant for his benefit, nothing works. Because if the idea is meant for the businesses or the others' benefit, they are automatically adopted. So honestly, if you ask, it's so easy. We don't make a rupee out of it. We don't spend a rupee out of it. But 15 million people enjoy and cheer themselves on a particular day. Yeah. So like that, it started off, and many of our programs have gone global. But when I talk of the livelihood, which is one of the most interesting projects for us, I mean, I was not from the sector. My co-founder, CEO, Misha, was not from the sector. We learned from Mira Shenoy, who runs Youth for Jobs out of Hyderabad. And when I went into the industry, there were only 4-5 players who were taking persons with disabilities. So inclusion was part of their policy, but the numbers were very small. I mean, it's taken us almost 10 years, and today we have 150 companies in retail, from a Reliance to a DMart to a Shoppers Stop to a Landmark Group to McDonald's, to name the companies. And many of them have made this as a written policy, and many of them made it as a moral policy. And today, like last year, we had 5,000 persons with disability trained, and 73% of them got jobs in these companies. And suddenly, when you have them as 1% or 2%, don't forget when 5,000 people join, okay, in the retail ecosystem, there are 500,000 people, because there's just about 1% of the population. They become sensitive towards such employees and such citizens of a country. And because we get them jobs in retail meeting consumers, So this retail industry draws, let's say 50, 60 million people per month. So you're talking of 50, 60 million consumers getting sensitive, and suddenly they love the industry because they say, oh, they're giving chance to such people. So I think the win-win gets created. And my own sense in the last 10 years is that when you go to the industries, like Anita said, okay, with a very clear definitive proposal and purpose, okay, they lap it up. And honestly, this is such a win-win because we don't charge them a rupee, we don't charge the employee a rupee, the youth a rupee, and we raise funds to the CSR funds of the corporates. So it's a total win-win for the value chain. And then we see they're doing things which are much more than what we thought. So I know of companies, whether it is a Vishal Mega Mart or whether it is a D-Mart or whether it's a McDonald's, where they said we're going to take 1% or 2% or 3% of the workforce as persons with disability. And suddenly it looks like the numbers will be in 500 and 600. And 50% of our associates are actually speech and hearing impaired deaf. So then suddenly they actually appoint deaf interpreters. They actually have a person in HR who looks after them, who is actually a force for inclusion. So things actually scale up without you wanting to intervene. I think the role that we have is that we can't give up. Okay, it's a very perseverance game. I mean, initially, when I came from the business, I thought, Mr. Nagesh comes in and he works out a model and he goes into the market, and the next day people join and you scale up in the next 1 year's time. In the last 10 years, I realized that this is a game where you have to have perseverance. You have to carry all of you together. And when it happens together, then it's a force, then you don't have to do anything. It just flows like a river. And very, very fantastic experience that I have seen in almost all the projects that you're working.
Fantastic. And just to follow up to that point you made and the various points that you made, over the years, in terms of running Train since 2009, have you seen the roles and relationships that you've had with companies change over years? So initially, you obviously had to demonstrate and show that this idea that you have works, right? And then you mentioned because of perseverance and other skill sets that you had to apply, it was slowly adopted by the companies themselves and it was integrated within their own policies.
So when we were actually starting up Train and we went and researched the retail employees, one of the things that came out was respect. They said that, because we are not educated, after the 10th standard, either due to financial reasons or other reasons, we don't go out, take up higher studies. So we go and join retail. But then we never get a chance to study. So we don't get respect because we are not educated, we are not graduates. And you know how India is, graduates are respected irrespective of their knowledge or whatever levels. And that respect was very critical for us. So we said, can we do something where these kids can get respected? So we started this award called the Train Retail Awards for Customer Satisfaction, Customer Service. And it was started just as one award. And that actually blew up into a situation where we get 1,000 to 2,000 applications. And when I went into the world of retail globally, nobody was actually celebrating retail employee success. They were doing within the company, but never in the community. And recognition in the community is the biggest recognition that any human being wants. So actually, we 2015 in Rome, 17 in Toronto, 2019 in Tokyo, with collaborating with IGDS, the world's largest body of department stores, we selected the best associates in the world of retail. So if you look at it, it's so simple and then from there, today there are organizations which have storytelling as part of their daily job. So there are fantastic stories of customer service which comes to the head office. Every week they select one, they celebrate. So I don't have to go and ask for stories. The companies have their own stories. And these stories end up in delivering better service. So what is good for the society and good for the social entrepreneur actually becomes good for the business. So then it becomes the business of social, no, it becomes a social business. So then then even the companies are actually doing great work for their employees, and a happy employee goes as a happy individual in the society. So it's a beautiful, collaboration of forces which come together when we do something which is good for that business. So you're not going and begging them to say, please do it for us. No, we are saying do it for yourself. And when you do it for yourself, it's success for you and success for us.
I have one follow-up question to that is could you share with our audience maybe one story from the Retail Employee Awards Day that happens annually globally that stands out to you and that you've been impacted by personally?
There are many, many, many such stories, but one of the stories that I love is a Titan employee from Chennai and who had a young mother coming in with a child, I think an infant, okay, who had an eye problem, and there was no way they could operate. So doctor had given some kind of a glass, okay, for whatever vision they could create. And this glass broke, and glass of that size is not available in the whole Chennai. And these two kids actually, they went all around the place, and they finally found out some old concoction, and they actually converted into a glass. It took them 30 days, but they went and finally gave this glass to the mother, and what happened is that mother had. Okay, so these are kids who are not, and this is not a product from their shop. Okay, this is some product they bought from some chor bazaar or some old market and converted that. And there are hundreds and thousands. In fact, as of today in our bank, we have 3,000 plus stories, and we have more than 300 winning stories of such customer excellence. Or for example, the Domino's employee, and this is a very sad case. This Domino's employee actually was on his way to deliver a pizza, and on the way he saw an accident, where a car met with an accident that was fallen into the valley. He went down and helped the person and saved one person from death. And we actually recognized that, and we called him to come for the award to be selected as the Humanity Award of that year. And it so happened on the same road, while delivering, he met with an accident and passed away. So we called his father to give the award. But I'm saying we see such wonderful stories of what these employees do, and we don't realize as to what they do. I mean, think about this. Last 8 months, we've had lockdown, Shantanu. 130 crore Indians have their kitchens going live. Okay, not one day of disruption. Okay, this is only because when we were all locked down and didn't want to come out of our house, even put our hand outside our door because COVID could come in. Okay, there are 46 million people who are working in retail stores to ensure that you get your rice and you get your ration on a daily basis. So I think these are people who require to be recognized, and we have to take it as their inclusive part of our society. Only then we respect each other. Also, there are lots and lots of stories I don't want to take. I can take the whole day for you telling you stories about retail employees and the customer service that they do.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing that, Nagesh. And what it sounds like to me, and the impact that it has is it's a catalytic effect that it has, right? When you are able to inspire, motivate, and empower one retail employee, that automatically lifts everyone else around that person, right? And everyone becomes better as a result of it. So thank you for sharing that story. And just before I go to Anita, I just wanted to quickly draw some shout outs from our audience. We have individuals who've joined us from Italy. So Sylvia, I see that you've joined. A big shout out to you. And then we have some audience members from Portugal, Morocco as well. We have Nirmala, who's joined us from IKEA Retail, something that you'd be very familiar with, Nagesh. And then we have Helena from Stillcase in Munich. So thank you all for joining us during this session. I'd encourage you to continue to write your questions in the chat box so that our panelists can respond to you as we continue this conversation. And with that, I wanted to move to you, Anita. And I know, Anita, you had started your work back in 1997, coming up with this very innovative method to upcycle plastic waste. And then throughout your journey as a social entrepreneur, you took part in many initiatives, and many things have happened. One of such initiatives was the Fabric of Change partnership that you took part in with Ashoka a few years back. But I know that your role as a social entrepreneur has shifted as well, from being that person who is able to upcycle plastic waste and then market it through retailers all across the world, to also now working in coalitions and working in partnership with companies to influence them in terms of seeing sustainability as something that's important and should be a core part of their business. Could you maybe speak a bit about sort of how that's happened and how you're able to create this influence?
Sure. When we started, we were very small, and suddenly we created this technique between my husband and me. So, like any small enterprise, we rushed down to get a patent, which took some years. And even as the company grew, we got into exports and we became a fair trade company. We got certified by World Fair Trade Organization, and our exports grew. So the number of people employed with the company kept growing. We reached a mark of 300 employees, and it became a big operation. But somehow there were lots of feelers to us from all over the world to share our technology. but because there is actually no respect for each other's technology. And we coming from India are always very unsure that if we set up a franchise model or we train other groups, then they'll just start copying us and then it'll create competition for us. And they may just take over our buyer network because markets are tough. So we kept everything under wraps, which many of us in the organization did not agree, but we went along because, when you are working in an organization, you can't always have your own, even if you're the founder. We did make it very board governed and very horizontal and things. In a way, we were trying to build a true social enterprise where the workers, everybody had a voice. So then, even if you did not agree with some things, you went along because it was the majority opinion. And it did make logical sense to it. But then a time comes in every organization when, the founders do age, and they do want to kind of become more of mentors to the organization or even leave the organizations. And I belong to that startup culture. I love startups. I like to get my hands dirty. I like to be involved in many things rather than sitting on a one particular table, because as the organization grows, it pays if you do one job repeatedly but efficiently. But so you just made differently. So then I was finding my own space very restricting my growth. And as Nagesh mentioned, every 25 years we have to rethink. And what do we want to do? Of course, we want the best for our organization, but there is something that, what are you about? So I needed to make a move. So we created a nice structure where the senior board members who had contributed a lot to the organization were happily rather were able to part with their seats, because it's not easy for people to leave seats at a particular age when we are not such a big body or a professionally run body. People don't want to leave their seats easily, and we did not want to, I mean, we're too old to play games, negative games or politics. So we wanted it very graceful for each one of us in their own time. And so I also wanted it out. And then, I moved towards my goal. And I also recreated my role for myself, which suited me in my next, like I do every decade. Every 10 years, I imagine myself how I would like to be in my own eyes after that 10 years. So I realized I wanted to be something else, quite different. And that required more of interaction with many stakeholders. I mean, not just limited to one, like exports, but many. And I created that path for myself. And it'll take time. There's no easy way. There's no shortcuts. But then I'm not in a hurry because there's nobody I'm competing with. I'm on my own. So I'm ready for partnerships, I'm ready for networks, I'm ready to be mentor, I'm ready to be on the board, because everything is a learning experience for me because I've not experienced all that. And the whole corporates are changing, government is changing, so I feel I might as well learn and adapt and be in partnerships.
So we have an audience question for you, Anita. But even before I ask this audience question, I wanted to again a bit more specifically ask in terms of it seems that your journey as a social entrepreneur has been one where as you've gained more experience, exposure, and you've grown as an organization, you've become more open to collaboration and seeing the need to collaborate with partners. Could you maybe give our audience just one example of a company that you have been working with, and not just from the point of view of exporting these fantastic products so that they can be retailed, but how you've been working with them to influence how they do their business, and how they see sustainability through their business practices.
Sure. Like one of the industry that we works with is Jindal Plastic. Maybe Jindals don't have a great reputation as environmentalists, but sorry to say, like it's a beautifully built corporate structure. I mean, the factory, plastic factory, but it's really a dump of waste plastic there. And because I won't take more names than this, but since you asked me one specific, what we are observing about the plastic industry is the big ones, big players also. Like because of the regulations of the government, since they are not allowed to dump plastic openly, like otherwise in the villages and all, that was their routine. They would auction off their waste and it would get dumped. Whatever was not being sold would get dumped in some village or something. Now the village communities and all are also more active towards, vigilant towards plastic waste. So they also don't want to be dumped by like which has got waste which has no value. Now there is certain kinds of waste which have no value, but there are reasons for that, that why it doesn't have value. For example, multi-layered chips, packets, or there are many types of plastics which don't have value at the moment. So they used to get dumped somewhere in the village, but now villagers also don't want it. So the factories are making themselves into mini fortress. They don't want government officials in, they don't want villagers in, they, but then this is not a way for a corporates, modern corporates to survive. So then we must work closely with them, like in their system change. And they're quite open to it because they also realize in the next 5-10 years, I can't imagine even big corporates handling what they have, doing things how they have traditionally done. So we are working with few on bringing about that system change, and also suggesting ways of circular. I mean, how do they uh, use their resources more efficiently, recover the resources more efficiently, and what kind of investment is required, mapping them out as what their needs are for their resource recovery. And then what kind of, so we're building a whole business cases for businesses to go in with certain kind of process or machines or people, so that they're able to survive. And also they look good on the net when they start disclosing that what they're going to, what they're doing with their waste, like this closing the loop and all. It's going to go now beyond just regulations or something, you do it for the government, for the pollution control board. It's not going to be like that anymore in the next, I mean, couple of years only. I see the future has arrived at our doorstep, and our corporates are not ready. So if we don't build this continuous pressure, it's not enough for the government or the village to resist it. We have to do it as as networks.
No, fantastic. And I think, the question that the audience member had for you, Anita, was, could you please speak about the business case for plastic companies? What is the financial advantage for them? So I think you've answered that to some extent, but was there anything else that you wanted to add to your response for this question?
Means it depends. Like plastic and industry is very varied in India. They work with different kinds of plastic. Similarly, textile, they work with different types of fiber. So it all depends as how, but there are very few very organized factories. Most of them are very that small and micro mini. It's still, even industry is very unorganized. When I look at the rag picking industry, and then I go and look at the dyeing units or the yarn making or the spinning units and all, then like there's actually not much differences in their economic development. They need as much as capacity development and skill building and all those things. Then the rag pickers also. It's just that the image is like, oh, industry, oh, a rag picker. But actually, when you come down to grassroots, beyond a clutch full of corporates and all who have this, the rest though, it's like, it's really bad. Like the dyes are going in open drains. I can't tell you the stories, what's happening.
In fact, I do plan to ask you for some impact stories in a minute. But before I do that, I had a question, and maybe I can bridge this to Nagesh as well. And this question was around unlikely allies. So by the sheer size of working in India, there are many people who have a stake in your work or who show interest in your work in some form or another throughout your journey. Could you maybe, Nagesh, speak about your most unlikely ally that you've partnered with? Someone who you never have thought would have been able to create or co-create the impact that you would have wanted to create if they weren't there?
Yeah, Shantanu, I think the first thing I want to share is that when I started Train, I had never worked in the sector. Neither my co-founder, Amisha, who's the CEO of the trust, had ever worked in this. So we started with saying we don't know. And the beauty of this statement is when you don't know, then you're willing to listen and willing to hear and go and ask for help. And that first kick itself to say, I don't know, made me go and speak to Accenture. And there was a lady, Ashitija, who had actually worked with Levi's and had met her earlier as part of the network. So I went to her and said, this is what is my dream, this is what I want to do. Okay, but I want you to create a business model for this, although it's an NGO, an ATG sector, whatever. But I want it to be like a business model. So I want to have a plan that this is what we'll do in 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. Can you help me and work with me? Now, I never imagined that a startup two-man organization will get attracted by Accenture, a behemoth of consulting firm globally, and would like to work with me. And I said, I have no money, so it has to be pro bono. So they actually helped us build the case, Shantanu. And honestly, that model, we used it for 5 years. And after 5 years, they voluntarily came back and said, we want to again work to see as to how the model has worked. And when they looked at it, they found that everything that we had planned worked. So to me, and then every year we have done one or the other work. So in the last 10 years, we must have done some 8 reports along with them, high quality reports. And you know, when people see us on a white paper with one side Train brand and one side Accenture, you get tremendous credibility. So I would say that a lot of not-profits and social enterprises should not even be hesitant when they need help. Okay, as long as they know and they're willing to accept that they don't know, and therefore they go for help, and that does a lot of good for you. Or for example, we went to Gudera and we actually were talking about what are the technologies available in this industry, and they said there's a technology for the corporate CSR to manage the various NGOs who are working. We said, can it be reversed? Instead of the corporates putting the technology to monitor the NGO, can the NGO adopt this technology for himself and work in such a way that tomorrow when the corporate comes, you're fully compliant? And we implemented the system 7, 8 years back. And from then till now, I mean, whether a Deloitte comes or a KPMG comes or anybody comes for audit, and everything is on the platform from the time an employee is onboarded to the time the person goes and gets a job. Now, that's one of the reasons why we started with 5 people and today we are 12, even after 10 years. So very small organization, okay, global impact, only because everything that we do is with a very single objective. Is this thought leadership, and is this going to have a catalytic effect? When you go to somebody, will somebody take it from you and scale it up? And that's the way that it has worked for us. So I would say that one single ally is Accenture from day one till now. Okay, I mean, there was a project we did just finished. We are just finishing a very large project for the Kiranas of the country. Okay, along with Accenture. I feel very, very good about it, and I will always, always, always support NGOs to say, go and ask. And I always say, you know, for audience who understand Hindi, कि मांगने में और पूछने में कुछ जाता नहीं है. You know, if you ask for something, at the most what you'll get a no. But when you're starting with a no, a possibility of a yes can make a world of a difference.
Fantastic. What an inspiring story. And while you're speaking about unlikely allies from a company's perspective, obviously the Accenture example is something that really stands out. You did mention the name of Amisha while you were speaking. Could you maybe tell our audience a bit about the journey and story of Amisha? Because to me, from what I know of Amisha's story, she also seems like an unlikely ally who has made significant impact to the work that you're doing.
Because she's a co-founder and she's part of this organization, I don't look at her as an ally. Yeah, Amisha started her career at a young age of 18, 19 in Shoppers Stop when we started the first Shoppers Stop in Andheri in 1991. And after that, I have seen her grow. So she started as a sales girl, an associate, a customer care associate. And then she went and did her graduation, then her MBA, and then she worked in Shoppers Stop and grew there, went around the world. She worked for Swatch Group, then various companies. And we had kept in touch as friends. And when I called her one day and say, you know what, I'm stepping out of Shoppers here to do work and I'm going to start this. And it just took her a minute. And she says, she was the head of non-food international in Tesco International in India. And she said, I want to join. And it's now 10 years. She completes 10 years in March. And I mean, what a wonderful person to have with you who has actually gone through the journey. So when I say that, can we make a difference to the life of an associate, a retail worker, for him, her to grow? And examples are people who have become store managers, general managers, CEOs. I mean, there is a living CEO in my organization, in our organization. And because she comes from similar thinking background, similar organization, it was so easy for us to implement so many processes and technology, which otherwise a traditional NGO will not want to do that. And here's another lesson that I would like to give. Most of us, as so-called founders of trust, always believe that we have to be the founder. Okay, we have to be the CEO. I have found it very different. If you can get a partner, okay, who can actually be the CEO and operate, and you can be that person who is actually bringing the vision, and together with the partner, you can work it forward. It's fantastic. Because one comes from part of art, somebody comes from part of science, and when you combine, it becomes a very good mixture of enterprise. So I have been very lucky. I think we have been very lucky as Amisha, me, and my team. That with a very young team, I think we've had some good impact, but a long way to go, Shantanu, long way to go. I mean, I don't know whether my balance of these 40 years is good enough for it. But having seen Anita and seeing what she has done, I'm very hopeful that we'll also be able to scale up and do some good work.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing that inspiring story. And thank you for inspiring us with these words, which really show the need for collaboration, the need for trust, and the need for courage in doing the work that social entrepreneurs do. I wanted to ask you, Anita, the same question. You've worked with rag pickers all across Delhi and all across the country. You've worked with companies, you've worked with all types of stakeholders in between as well. For you, could you tell us a story of a very unlikely ally who's played a significant role in driving the change that you've wanted to create?
First of all, I want to say thanks, Nagesh. I'm looking forward to working with you, actually. And well, my husband has been my partner since we started the organization together. He's an engineer from BITS Pilani, and I'm an artist, a designer. So yeah, the combination of an arts and science works very well. That's how we were able to create those innovations, because he had the engineering mind and I was the artist designer. And then when we decided that because we both entered 60, we both wanted a little space between us and the organization. So got a very competent young team, and we are very happy to give them now all the space, because we are on to different things. Our agendas are full. He wanted to get back to his music. He was always into music with his Pilani friends. So I'm very happy that and I wanted to do more of this work of networking and forming partnerships and working more in circular fashion. And so I'm also busy. The unlikely partner, I won't say, but of course, the two partners which stand out in my journey, one is Ashoka, especially through Fabric for Change, because it got me in connection with three important business contacts. You could now we are friends because it's a very old project, 10-year-old project. One was Liz, and she's at University of Utrecht. We are doing a fantastic project together in circular fashion. It's a PhD project, but it's funded by Lord's CNA Foundation, Lord's Foundation. And the second was Edrina. She's also in circular fashion, and we are doing a project together. Third was she runs this organization called Nest in America, and they have also really helped building our capacities as trainers, because we have our own set of Indian trainers, but it's more grassroots style. But I realized that when we did with Nest, the program of training, I really liked their resources too. So I think Ashoka has been very, very instrumental. And the other organization which has also helped, I mean, I'm talking about the long standing relationships that I have with the World Fair Trade Organization, because it's a network of entrepreneurs. So there are all those, there are about 100 European American fair trade buyers who are members of that network. And they really believe in innovative products. They want to buy from social enterprises. So even 15 years back, when Indian market looked bleak for recycled products, then it was the fair trade market which stood by us. And we did many mistakes. We have let down our buyers a lot, many times in this journey. Either the material, there were problems with the material, we never realized. And, or, I mean, there were a lot of, we have had a lot of challenges working in the waste stream and with innovative techniques. But these buyers have stood by us. So I would say these two networks have played an amazing role. And until today, most of our projects have some connection with them, with these two networks.
Fantastic. And I'm not sure how many stories there are out there where your husband is your co-founder or your wife is your co-founder, but I'm glad that for you it has worked out, and it has led to the incredible impact that you've been able to create through Conserve India. And I realize also that we are nearing the end of our time today for this wonderful discussion. And how I love ending such discussions where we have our Ashoka Fellows with us is always by sharing lessons and lessons through sharing a particular story. So maybe if we stay with you, Anita, if you could very, very quickly share with us, what are some of the biggest learnings that you've had as a social entrepreneur over the last 20 years that you have been working? And could you maybe with that share with us a particular story of impact that always comes to mind, that really speaks about your work and why you're doing the work that you're doing?
There are several stories, but one, because like in the Raktika community, we work a lot with the lower caste, and many of the women have never sat on a chair or a stool. They're just so used to sitting on the floor in front of any authority, or even if there's no authority, even if there's a male standing, they'll sit on the floor. But once you get them used to sitting on the chair, then they don't sit on the floor. I mean, they can, it's not that they can't, but they understand and they gain that confidence. So for me, it's very, very important to see all men and women sitting on the chairs and talking issues, or not talking issues, but sitting on the chair as equals is very important for me. So that one thing, whenever a woman starts doing that naturally without me forcing them or asking them, as if it's a normal thing to do, is to sit on a chair, then I feel like, that person is ready for the next level of training. So I have several, like there was, we had quality control problem in Germany with one buyer. We didn't notice here the shipment reads, the usual problems which happen. So one of our, we took one of tailors who had been, come from the rag picking community, who had learned tailoring and had become Master G. We took him to Germany because it needed, the shipment couldn't be brought back. Obviously, somebody needed to fix it there. It was cheaper for them and for us to take one or two people, tailors from here rather than hire there. And so, but when he came back, I mean, there also he realized, oh my God, it's a different world. In his whole village, in his whole community, nobody had ever sat on a plane, got a passport, gone to Germany, sat with the Germans, ate their food, because they were very nice to us since we had made all that effort. They would bring food and, all those things, showed him around the city. And he was clicking pictures, sending it to, so it was just such an experience for him and for everybody else in the community. They could not get over the fact that two people had gone to Germany. So yes, I mean, we've had many interesting stories. And so that's why I find it an amazing journey for a social entrepreneur.
Fantastic,
Yeah,
fantastic. Thank you for sharing, Anita. Just very quickly, there was a question for you, Nagesh, before we listen to your story and the lessons that you've accumulated over a long career as a social entrepreneur. The question was, what will your advice be when finding allies or partners? And what should people avoid when they go to look for partnerships based on your experience?
I think the first is the matching of the purpose. I mean, when you look for a partner, okay, rest everything being equal or unequal, if you're not aligned to the purpose, it'll never work. Okay. So in partnerships, especially in social enterprises, the hearts have to tick before the minds click. In businesses, the minds have to click before the hearts tick. I think that's the fundamental difference that I see between the two. As far as the learning is concerned, as a social entrepreneur, first is I think it is always better to be in the area that you know and network, okay, so that you can focus. It's a very easy way to do because all the years of build-up that you have done, it is so easy to work. I think that's first. Second is you can't be a dreamer before you start, okay, and a sleeper after you start. Okay, your dreams have to continue, okay, which is very important for a social enterprise because social enterprises always come out with wanting to change the world, wanting to make a difference, and these are all big things and big projects, even though done in a small scale. And you will find a lot of challenges. If you're coming for business, this is a very different business. I kept saying this requires patience and perseverance. So you have to develop that ability of being patient and have perseverance to follow it up. That's the second part of it. And third is, I have seen that when you intend to do good work, okay, forces and energies come together without your knowing. So I think that's important. Your intention has to be very positive. And if you continue that, I don't know. I mean, I never thought I will become an Ashoka fellow. I never thought I will have a day when I'm sitting with Anita ji on the same platform. I mean, these are things which you don't think of. It happens. She said maybe she wants to work with me. I was thinking, what can we do together? I mean, these are forces which come together. So I think the intention should not be missed by a social entrepreneur. And the last thing is that you will always be short of funds, okay, but you should not give up because that's something that वो हम लोग बोलते हैं कि हाथ फैलाने से आदमी जो है वो गरीब नहीं हो जाता है. So it is something like this. I mean, stretching your hands in front, not for yourself, for somebody else's goodness. I think there's nothing wrong in it, and I don't think we should shy away. First few years, I used to find it so difficult to talk to a donor, and Amisha and team used to do, and they would say, "BSN, don't go and ask." Okay, but now I feel no, I'm not asking for myself, and I'm sure there are people who give because they think that the work that we are doing is going into the grassroots. So, yeah, and as I'm talking to you, I have a very, very interesting story which happened in the first batch of persons with disability in 2011 in Hyderabad. I think one of the kid who was polio stricken, both his legs, okay, and he came and trained with us in our center, and then he got a job, and the guy was earning some 11,000 bucks, and he started sending 5,000 rupees every month. So after 3 months, when the villagers saw the prosperity in the house of his parents, they came and checked up. And when the parents said that my son is working in Hyderabad and is earning a lot and sending money, they said there's something wrong. I mean, with his abilities, there's no way he can earn this money. I think he must have got into bad habits. So the panchayat decided to send 2 of the villagers to come to Hyderabad and see the environment and what he's working. So when they came and saw this kid working in a proper environment, in a very modern retail store, they're so proud, they invited the kid to come back. And he and his parents were honored in front of the panchayat. Okay, I mean, to me, that was such a big game changer because we thought that we are training one person and creating livelihood, but we didn't realize, and this is what I was telling you last week, that the micro, the meso, and the macro impact of any of such work of social enterprises, okay, only you get to know when you measure it. Otherwise, you think you're making change to one person. Yeah. And similarly, I know of women who have gone through the program, had taken up livelihood. Okay, I mean, they stopped themselves getting married at an early age, but made the younger siblings not get married, give them education. So one livelihood suddenly changes 4, 5 families, and it's a huge change. And it is not only financial and economic change, the respect they get in the society. Because like I said, now in our society, if you're not educated, you're not 10th, 12th graduate, okay, you think bekar ho gaya. I mean, this is a worthless guy. Okay, but these things change. So for me, that is highly impactful. And with millions of people feeling good about the work we do and thousands of people who are getting impacted, you feel good that, I mean, the change that's happening is to a larger community than what you think you're doing.
Fantastic, Nagesh. And with those inspiring words of wisdom, we are out of time today for today's session. So I wanted to again, extend my deepest thank you to both you, Nagesh, and Anita, for taking the time out to join us and share your stories of collaboration, your insights, and your experiences with our audience today. I just wanted to also remind everyone that we also have a number of exciting sessions that are coming up the rest of the day, as well as tomorrow. And I encourage you to all to get involved, do take part in some of these sessions, and then really sort of be with us throughout this learning journey as we speak with many partners, many social entrepreneurs, and many other people who are within our network. But for today, that's all from India, and that's all from our discussion. We hope to all see you again very, very soon. And we hope you all stay safe and well. Thank you.
Thank you, Shantanu. You've been a wonderful host. I never knew that you have this talent so well. And thank you, Avantika. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye.